At Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, United States, two B-2 Spirit stealth bombers sat on the runway with their engines on, loaded with the biggest non-nuclear bombs ever made. Their target was an underground Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps command bunker buried under the mountains of northern Tehran, 12,000 kilometers away. Inside that bunker, American intelligence had found a large group of senior IRGC commanders gathered for an important meeting, and time was running out. If the bombers did not launch within the hour, the commanders would spread out and the chance would disappear. Admiral Brad Cooper, the commander of U.S. Central Command, gave the order, and within minutes, the two B-2s rolled down the runway and lifted off, starting a 36-hour round-trip mission that would carry them across the Atlantic Ocean, over Europe, through the Middle East, and straight into the heart of Iranian airspace. To understand why this mission needed the B-2 music spirit, you need to understand what makes this aircraft so special. Its flying wing shape makes it almost invisible to radar, letting it fly through the most heavily defended airspace music on Earth without being seen. Beyond its stealth, each bomber can also carry up to 40,000 pounds of weapons, hidden completely inside internal bays, which means nothing hangs outside to give away where it is. And on this mission, they were carrying something very specific, the GBU-57 Massive Ordnance Penetrator, usually called the MOP, a bomb that weighs 30,000 pounds and is 20 feet long, making it the heaviest non-nuclear weapon in the entire American arsenal. It was built for one single purpose, aimed to smash through up to 200 feet of earth or 60 feet of concrete before exploding deep under the surface. And the warhead alone holds more than 5,000 pounds of high explosive. No other bomb can do what the MOP can do, and no other aircraft except the B-2 can carry it. The underground facility these bombs were aimed at was in the mountainous Jamaran district in northern Tehran. According to intelligence reports, the compound had been dug deep into the mountainside and strengthened with thick layers of concrete and rock, specially built to survive normal airstrikes. Inside, the facility worked as a regional command center for the Revolutionary Guard, where top commanders planned military operations, controlled communication systems, music, and led forces across many provinces. Because of how deep it was buried and how strongly it was protected, the Iranians believed the facility was fully beyond the reach of any air attack. They had watched American bombs hit surface targets across the country for weeks, but this bunker had stayed untouched, and the people inside it felt safe. That confidence was about to be broken. But American intelligence had been watching the facility for months by using satellite images and intercepted radio messages. Through this surveillance, analysts tracked the movements of IRGC officers and slowly built a detailed picture of the facility's layout, its depth, and the patterns of activity inside. They watched vehicles entering and leaving the compound, identified supply shipments, and matched communication signals with known IRGC frequencies. Over time, this careful work showed not just what was inside the facility, but exactly when it was most open to attack. And that moment came when intelligence detected an unusual number of senior commanders arriving at the facility on the same day. The information was sent up the chain of command to Admiral Cooper, and the timing was critical because this was not a planned strike set weeks ahead, but a rapid response attack against a target that could vanish at any moment. And its success depended completely on how fast the military could move. As the two bombers crossed the Atlantic Ocean, KC-135 Stratotanker refueling aircraft were already waiting along the route at coordinates. Once the bombers reached them, the refueling happened at high altitude in total darkness, with each bomber connecting to the tanker and taking in thousands of pounds of fuel, while both aircraft stayed in tight formation at high speed. This ability to refuel in midair is what lets the B-2 strike any target on Earth from its home base in Missouri, without needing to land at a foreign airfield or ask any ally for permission. On this mission, the bombers filled their fuel tanks several times during the flight east, each time disconnecting and pushing ahead toward Iran while maintaining complete radio silence. While the bombers were still hours away from their target, the situation inside Iran was helping them, and the reason was Operation Epic Fury. This larger U.S.-Israeli military campaign that had started on February 28th had already ripped apart much of Iran's air defense network. Radar systems had been destroyed, anti-aircraft missile batteries had been taken out, and Iran's ability to detect and shoot down incoming aircraft had been badly damaged across the country. This mattered because even though the B-2 is built to avoid radar by itself, the fact that Iran's defenses were already in ruins meant the bombers faced almost no danger at all on their approach. At the same time, a separate but connected mission was taking place on the ground inside Iran. An American F-15E Strike Eagle had gone down during combat, and its weapons officer was trapped in a remote mountain area. In response, U.S. Special Operations Forces were racing to pull him out before Iranian forces could get him first. The fact that this rescue and the bomber strike were happening at the same time showed just how many moving parts American commanders were handling, carrying out a rescue deep inside enemy territory while also directing a strategic bombing mission launched from the other side of the world. After more than 15 hours in the air, the two B-2 bombers finally reached Iranian airspace and entered without being seen. Their stealth design absorbed and scattered whatever radar signals were still active, making the aircraft invisible to what was left of Iran's warning systems. The bombers dropped to their attack altitude and lined up exactly with the GPS coordinates of the underground facility. Then the weapons bay doors opened, showing the huge bomb hanging from its launcher inside each aircraft. Its music guidance system had already locked onto the exact point on the surface directly above the buried command center. And then the bombs fell. With the 30,000-pound weapons dropped from the aircraft and sped toward the ground, their hardened steel shells were built to survive the violent force of what was about to happen next. When the first bomb hit the surface above the facility, it did not bounce or break apart. It drove straight through the top layer of earth and rock with tremendous force, plunging downward like a giant metal spear. The casing stayed together as it punched through layer after layer, first loose soil, then packed earth, then solid rock, and finally the thick concrete walls that the Iranians had poured around their underground fortress. When the bomb finally reached its deepest point, far below the surface, where the commanders were gathered in their meeting, the warhead holding more than 5,000 pounds of explosive went off. What happened next was complete destruction. The blast sent shock waves tearing outward through the rock in every direction, crushing walls, collapsing music tunnels, and destroying everything in its path. Even the force by itself was enough to break apart rooms that had been built to survive normal bombings. And then the next bombs followed the same path into the already broken ground, each one driving deeper through the shattered layers and exploding at even lower depths. The effect of several huge explosions striking one after another in sequence was more than the facility had ever been built to handle, and the command center was completely crushed under the weight of its own mountain. On the surface, the destruction could be seen from miles away. The huge clouds of brown dust and gray debris blasted upward from the mountainside as the underground explosions pushed thousands of tons of earth into the air. The ground shook so hard that tremors could be felt in nearby neighborhoods, and car alarms went off across the district. For several minutes after the first blasts, weakened chambers deep inside the mountain kept collapsing one after another, each one sending fresh clouds of dust shooting up through cracks in the surface. The mountain that had once protected the facility was now its grave. And for those who had gathered inside the facility believing they were safely out of reach, there had been no warning, no alarm, and no time to escape. With the mission complete, the two bombers closed their weapons bays, climbed back to altitude, and turned west for the long flight home. They connected with refueling tankers once again over the Atlantic before finally landing back at Whiteman Air Force Base, about 36 hours after they had first taken off from that same runway. In those 36 hours, the crews had flown halfway around the world, delivered the most powerful conventional weapons ever used against an underground target, and destroyed a facility Iran believed could never be reached, all without landing on foreign soil and without a single American setting foot on Iranian ground. The strike sent a message that reached far beyond Tehran. There is no bunker deep enough no mountain thick enough, and no wall strong enough to protect against the full reach of American firepower. The GBU-57 was built for exactly this kind of moment, to prove that hiding underground does not mean being untouchable. And over the mountains of northern Tehran, it proved exactly that.